Among Us has exploded in popularity over the past few months. This super addicting party game pits friends up against each other to try to find imposters in the group. Now, this game has been around since 2018, but because of this explosion in its popularity, I was wondering how much the creators are actually making from it. So I went to start doing research on how Among Us actually makes money from its user base, including the actual purchase of the game, in-game cosmetics, advertising, and merchandise. During my research, I came across a video on YouTube from Max Mayer called "How Much Does Among Us Make?" So I started to watch a few minutes of it, and I saw that he was doing a very good job of doing the research, figuring out how much revenue Among Us is actually making from various sources. So I decided to pause the video and actually record myself reacting to this video and how much the Among Us creators actually make from the game. I have a feeling it's gonna be a huge amount, but let's hop right into the video.
Among Us is an online game blowing up in popularity right now. If you've been on YouTube in the past 2 weeks, you've probably seen thumbnails with this little jelly bean shaped character all over the place. I know I have. This game seemed to come out of nowhere instantly, so it piqued my interest. How popular is this game? And most importantly, what kind of money is this game making?
It sounds like Max was in the same mindset as myself. I saw a bunch of Among Us videos on the trending page on YouTube, and I'm super curious. Everyone is making so much money off this game. The creators have to be making a huge amount also.
This is a question that I thought would be relatively simple to answer. However, the more I dug into the question, the more complex and interesting this question became. Before we get into my discoveries, let's first just give a brief summary of the game and how the game earns money. Among Us is an online multiplayer deduction game similar in concept to the board game Clue, except you're a jelly bean shaped avatar on a spaceship, probably wearing a hat. Within this setting, you are either cast as a crew member or an imposter. If you're an imposter, your goal is to kill as many crew members as possible without raising too much suspicion to avoid getting voted off the ship. If you're a crew member, you're supposed to find out who the imposter is. And to be honest, green is looking a little sus.
So there's one thing of note from that clip that I think all of you need to know, and that's revenue sources for games and online things are pretty hard to come by to get actual numbers. So I'm assuming in this video, he's going to be estimating a lot of different revenue sources, but it should be a pretty close estimate as to what Among Us actually makes.
This game is actually a lot of fun, and I can see why it's blowing up. Now that we know what the game is, let's talk briefly about how games like this make any money. Among Us is available both on phones and computers. The game is free to download mobilely with ads, with the option to remove ads for $1.99. The game is $5 on PC through Steam.
Okay, so one thing to mention with Steam is that Mac users cannot download this game on their computer. They're going to have to resort to their phone or some sort of phone emulator that can run on their Mac. This game on Steam is only available for download and purchase on PC, and that's something Among Us needs to fix because there are a huge amount of Mac users out there and they could be missing out on millions of dollars.
Beyond this, the mobile and PC versions have options to purchase things like hats, outfits, and pets for your little jelly bean character. This doesn't help you in the game in any way, but looking at the reviews, one guy says that his crush thought that his pet was cute, so if that's not worth $1.99, I don't know what is.
Cosmetic purchases like this are huge. If you all know the game Fortnite, they make most of their money off of in-game cosmetic purchases that don't give you any advantage whatsoever, they just look good. This has been a recent trend in other games such as Apex Legends and Call of Duty Modern Warfare, where these in-game cosmetic purchases are a huge revenue source.
Finally, the last revenue source is the game developers sell merch in their online store, mostly things like t-shirts and this little plush crewmate. Looking at this, you might be like me and think, okay, well, all you need to do is take the downloads, multiply that by $5, slap on ad rates and in-game transactions, and you'll have a good idea of how much money this game makes. And if you're also like me, you'd be very, very wrong.
And that's part of the reason why I didn't do all the research. Once I saw Max do it, I knew he would probably take all the steps in his research that I would, so that's why I'm letting him do all the hard work.
This is where the research starts. The first thing I need to do is figure out how many people have paid for and downloaded this game both on PC and their mobile phone. However, apparently this is a figure closely guarded as a secret for whatever reason. Starting off with PC downloads, Steam does not give the total download statistics for any game, but I found through my research there are a few ways to estimate this. First, I found that there are two sites that estimate these figures using in-house algorithms, PlayTracker and Steam Spy. PlayTracker estimates the game to have 5.1 to 5.2 million PC downloads, and Steam Spy estimates the game to have 20 to 50 million PC downloads. These figures were just so far apart, I wasn't satisfied with the range and I needed a new way to figure this out. So I found another method thanks to some research done by a website called Gamma Sutra. They found that you can use the total number of reviews left on a game to estimate the total downloads of that game. Through their research, they discovered that total downloads divided by total reviews on average equals 87.
Now that's pretty interesting. I never really thought about that the number of reviews on a certain product is usually around the same ratio to how many people downloaded that product.
So as of right now, Among Us has 156,651 reviews. So we take that, times it by 87, and we get a good estimate of 13,628,000 PC downloads. Now all we need to do is multiply that total by the purchase price of $4.99, and we get $68 million in downloads on PC only. A massive figure, especially considering 99% of all their downloads have happened in the last month and a half.
Now you just have to think that number of 68 million is huge, and that's basically from over the past maybe 4 to 6 months when Among Us exploded in popularity.
But this is only the beginning. We still have mobile downloads. I thought that this would be much easier because Google Play gives you an idea of the total downloads, but it turns out again, I was very wrong. Google Play gives you a download range, and in this case, for Among Us, the range is between 100 million and 500 million downloads. Again, way too big of a range to be satisfying for this video.
Now, if you're wondering why companies and other entities do this, where they're hiding their sales numbers, it's because they don't want to give their competition an inkling of things they should be doing to compete. So it really just comes down to a competition thing, a capitalism thing, and that's all that really is.
So back to the review method. I found through some more research on app developer forums that for larger apps you can expect a review to download multiple of 100x in the Google Play Store and 200x in the Apple App Store. So Google Play currently has 2,945,000 reviews on this game. Take that times 100 and you get 295 million downloads. Apple has far fewer reviews at 80,700, so take that times 200 and we get 16,100,000 downloads. All right, so we have a whopping total mobile downloads of 311,100,000. Over 300 million mobile downloads around the world. That's nearly the population of the United States. Now, let's figure out mobile revenue. First, I need to figure out how many people are paying that $1.99 charge to remove the ads on the game. Again, scoring through research and developer forums, I found that only about 5% of people pay for a no ad experience.
Now that's very true. I actually downloaded this game on my iPhone and I still do have ads, but they're at most maybe 10 seconds after you finish an entire game. So I don't really think that $1.99 is worth it. But as he said, 5% of people do pay that amount. And when you're talking about millions upon millions of viewers, it's a lot of money, and you'll see just that in a second.
I was a little bit surprised that it wasn't higher, to be honest. But 5% of 311 million downloads is still 15,500,000 people. So multiply that by $1.99 and we get $30,800,000. All right, let's take a deep breath and hang in there with me. I promise the payoff is going to be worth it. Now let's do ad revenue. This was tricky to say the least. It was tricky because ads are only paid out when people are playing the game. It doesn't matter if 300 million people have the game. If no one's playing it, they make no ad revenue. So to determine ad revenue, we needed to figure out how many people are playing the game on their phone at any given time. This isn't data that can be found anywhere, but there is data for how many people are playing on their PCs at any given time. So after doing some digging, I found a tweet from one of the game creators saying this game broke a record and topped 1.5 million players at one time. With that, I was able to look back and see how many people were playing the game on PC at that moment, which was 447,000. That means over 1 million people were playing on their phones at that exact time. From here, I'm able to work up an estimate based on what we do know. If we take 1.5 million divided by 447,000, this comes out to 3.35. So we can infer that at any given time, there are 3.35 times more people playing on their phone versus on computer. And again, we have real-time data for computer players.
Now that's actually really good. I give props to Max for that analysis right there. He was pulling a bunch of different sources together to get a good estimate as to how many users are actually playing at once and therefore subject to ads.
So I tracked the data for PC players and found that on average, in any given hour of the day, there are 187,000 people playing Among Us on PC. So we multiply that by 3.35 and we get 626,000 mobile players on average each hour of the day, 24 hours a day. Now we just need to deduct the 5% of people who pay to remove ads, and we have 591,000 mobile players every hour with no ads. Next, we need to figure out how much these ads actually pay. I found that Among Us uses what's called interstitial ads, which are basically full screen ads placed at natural transition points in the game. In the case of Among Us, an ad plays after a game finishes. Ad rates for mobile ads are measured in eCPM, which is short for effective cost per mil. Basically the amount an advertiser pays a website per 1,000 visitors who see its advertisements. The average eCPM for interstitial ads in the US is $8.57 per 1,000. Next, we played a bunch of rounds and found that on average you can play about 5 rounds an hour. So they are seeing 5 ads per hour. All right, we have all the data. Now let's do the math.
Now I did want to say one thing about the ad rates. $8 is a bit high for a game. I know on YouTube some niches get high amounts such as 8 and even into the double digits, but I feel like that this estimate might be a little bit higher than the CPM that they're actually getting in Among Us. But either way, it's still going to be a decent estimate to the ad revenue for the game.
591,000 players per hour times an average of 5 ads per hour is 2,955,000 ads viewed per hour. Divide that by 1,000 because eCPM is calculated in thousands of views. That comes out to 2,955. Then we multiply that by the average ad rate of $8.57 and we get an average per hour ad revenue of $25,324 per hour every hour of the day. I know I wouldn't mind $25,000 per hour. You know what? Hit that like button if you agree. But wait, there's more. We found that 8% of players had paid upgrades to get pets. This adds at least an additional $77 million to the total, and that's on the low end. That number could easily be double for people who buy more than one thing, and obviously they're only using one at a time.
That is the one thing, almost $100 million in cosmetics, and honestly it probably is over $100 million so far in cosmetics bought for Among Us, and that's huge. As I said, games like Fortnite thrived off of in-game cosmetic purchases, and it seems like Among Us may be doing the same thing.
Finally, before we do total tabulations, we have one more item. However, I believe this is the most negligible revenue item on the list, and that's merch.
Okay, so merchandise, I'm actually going to skip over this part because as he said, it's not as important and it's definitely nowhere near the magnitude of all of the other revenue sources. So let's skip to the end. How much did Among Us actually make so far because of their explosion during these pandemic times?
Now finally, the payoff. Let's add all these things up and see what they've earned in the last 6 weeks. We have $68 million in purchases on the PC, $30,800,000 in purchases from people who chose to eliminate ads, $77 million in in-game purchases, $26 million in ad revenue in the past 6 weeks, and that's going up by $25,000 an hour, and we can't forget $105,000 for merch. This gives us a grand total of $201,905,000 in the last 6 weeks.
Over $200 million in the past 6 weeks. I think the trajectory that Among Us is on is definitely a recipe for over $1 billion in revenue by the end of 2020, especially because it seems like the pandemic is not really slowing down. Everyone's going to be in their house and they're going to be playing this game with their friends.
Now, I knew this game had to be making a lot of money, but this is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I will say there had to be many estimates in my calculations, so I'm going to give this figure a 25% confidence interval, giving us a range between $150 million and $250 million.
I'll agree with that. That's a pretty wide margin of error, and these are all estimates, as Max said, and I think he did a very great job at the overall amount that Among Us is actually making. Now, there is one more thing to think of, and that's expenses. So all of the expenses the Among Us team has to pay to keep this game running. Now, Max says there's things such as server costs, obviously employees to pay, but all of that may amount to maybe a few $1,000,000, but it is nowhere near that $200 million plus that they're making. So their profit margins are huge for this game, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. If you enjoyed this reaction video, give it a like, feel free to comment down below, subscribe with those alert bells on if you aren't already, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.